Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Ryan Pronzinski of Christ Lutheran Church in Michigan Center, Michigan. And this is my Chair Chat Daily Devotion for Friday, June 12th, 2020. Peace be with you. These Chair Chats, as I check my phone here to make sure it's on silent, are intended to help you engage your life of faith right now during these hard times. With pandemic, economic downturn, civil unrest over racial injustice, and honestly so much more, all the other turmoil and hardship that might be going on in your life, the stress, the emotional fatigue. And so with engagement in mind, I encourage you, I know these videos can sometimes, at least to me, feel a little long. Take time throughout to just pause, reflect, come back to them, walk away from them, journal, have conversation with those around you. And really do what you need to do to use these videos to help you stay grounded in faith and ponder, where God is at with you right now. And with engagement in mind, and this being a digital platform, I encourage you to leave constructive comments, questions, or prayer requests in the comments section below. Shout out to my friend Mal for continuing to share thoughts and words of thanks. I appreciate it. And you can interact with one another as well. And I promise I'll get back to those comments, questions, or prayer requests in the following videos. The readings for each day come from the Daily Revised Common Lectionary, so I don't make them up on my own, which is a church calendar reading schedule, and these readings can be found in the description below, and the Daily Revised Common Lectionary can be found online. The readings for today are Psalm 131. For details, see June 11th video. I will not be reading or talking about that today. Isaiah 26, verses 1 through 6. And then Philippians chapter 2, verses 25 through 30, which is actually a continuation of yesterday's video and reading. Before I get to the readings themselves, my last note is just, as always, to invite anyone out there who's seeing these videos to come and join us at Christ Lutheran Church for our Sunday morning worship service, which happens at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we've been using Facebook Live to live stream our services. The link to our Facebook Live services can be found in the description below, so please come and join us either on Sunday morning or after the fact, because they get recorded and posted, and we would be happy to have you hear the good news and sharing the good news with us. All right, moving on to the first reading, which is Isaiah 26, verses 1 through 6, and reads as follows. On that day, this song will be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. He sets up victory, like walls and bulwarks. Open the gates, so that the righteous nation that keeps faith may enter in. Those of steadfast mind you keep in peace because they trust in you. Trust in the Lord forever. For in the Lord God you have an everlasting rock. For he has brought low the inhabitants of the height. The lofty city he lays low. He lays it low to the ground, casts it to the dust. The foot tramples it, the feet of the poor, the steps of the needy. Here ends the reading. Now, a little bit of a history lesson for you, and I apologize because I know that some of the people that I work with, I think I've shared some not completely wrong information. I've gotten my details out of order when I've talked about Israel in captivity, so I apologize. So I was looking at my study Bible. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history recap of Isaiah because the book Isaiah spans several hundred years. The writings, they're not all from the same time period. In fact, there's a first Isaiah, second Isaiah, and third Isaiah to some scholars within the book of Isaiah itself. So I had to refresh my memory, and as I have in my notes, I'm confident that I've messed this up a few times. So if I messed it up with you, I'm sorry. But here it is fresh. So first we have the Assyrian Empire, whose capital is Nineveh, like the book of Jonah, right, who gets swallowed by the big fish, that takes over Israel. So first the Assyrian Empire takes over Israel. Next, the Babylonian Empire rises and takes over the Assyrian Empire, which includes the captive Israel. During the Babylonian reign, much of Israel's two kingdoms, the northern and southern, are in exile in Babylon. Somewhere in this time frame, the temple gets destroyed by the Babylonians. Next, the Persian Empire rises and takes over with Cyrus as their leader. And I know I've mentioned Cyrus to some of you out there that watch these. And now Cyrus, who is not an Israelite, nor a follower of the Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, this person, Cyrus, is called the Lord's servant and is the one who is given credit for the temple being rebuilt. So, all of this warning and captivity, seeking to make sense of it all, all of this warring, all the war going on, the captivity, and seeking to make sense of it all, and wanting to know where God is at in the midst of all this chaos, right? All of this is at the heart of the book of Isaiah. Figuring out what's going on with the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, and how the heck God is in the midst of it all. And so the prophet Isaiah's main theme or call to God's people, which is true for several prophets, not just Isaiah, is this. Isaiah warned against participating in the international power politics of the day, and that only by relying on the Lord would God's people ultimately prevail. Right? So don't trust in the horses and chariots of Egypt to save you. Don't trust in your own might to save you. Right? Trust in God. And we have those words of trust in the reading today. In addition, for people, or what it meant rather, for God's people to prevail, in large part, was being able to re-enter Jerusalem, their sacred city, and more importantly, to be able to re-enter their temple, right? The temple within Jerusalem. As we read, on that day being the day of deliverance, this song will be sung in the land of Judah, which is where Jerusalem is. We have a strong city. He, that is God, sets up victory, like walls and bulwarks. So open the gates, so that the righteous nation that keeps faith may enter in. Okay, so now at this point you might be wondering, Pastor, why the history lesson? Firstly, so that you get a sense of the emotional state of God's people in Isaiah. I mean, think about it. They have not simply been away from their house of worship, their place of worship, for a few months as we have, right? But for possibly more than a generation, possibly several generations. I mean, imagine if you're a grandparent out there talking to your grandkids and saying to them, I remember this place where we used to go and meet God and celebrate God together. This beautiful, holy, sacred building. I hope that one day you can go there too. Because you know that your grandkids and your children and your grandchildren have never been to this place. That would be really emotionally hard. So I want to get you in that headspace. And the reality is, if God can ease the pain of being away from places of worship after several years or maybe even several generations, and deliver God's people from being bound from captivity to a foreign enemy, actually several foreign enemies that seem larger than life itself, first the Assyrians, then the Babylonians, and then in some ways the Persians until Cyrus steps in. If God can deliver God's people through all of that, then God can deliver us. God can deliver you from the bounds of COVID-19 or economic hardship or emotional uncertainty and fatigue or anything that is just feeling very overwhelming in these hard days. I mean, that is the promise of Isaiah today. That is the promise of Isaiah pretty much every day. this powerful God of deliverance, isn't just a powerful God of deliverance for the people of Isaiah back, thousands of years ago. That God is our God now. That story is our story now. God will deliver us. God will deliver you. The other thing I would have you note is this. While the people of God are outside their holy city and their holy temple, their holy place of worship, while the people are bound by a foreign force and longing for normalcy, that should sound familiar, while the people cannot go to places they would normally see as places of faith, God is calling the people through Isaiah to cultivate faith. So while you're away, while you're bound, while you're troubled, while you can't go to your house of worship, cultivate faith where you are. That's what God is calling Isaiah to have the people do. That is to say, cultivate trust in God. And do so before, not after, before you get back to life as normal. Right? Here again the reading. These are the exact words. Open the gates, so that the righteous nation that keeps faith may enter in. So, the faith in God is to be kept, that is guarded, that is preserved, that is cultivated outside of the temple, right? Before the gates are opened, before they enter back in. That is outside of the normal ways of living that they and we are used to. That's when faith is to be cultivated. To put it in another frame of words would be to say it this way. We don't come, not the people of Isaiah, not us, we don't come to our places of worship in order to form faith. Not that that doesn't happen there, but that's not the primary purpose. We don't come to our places of worship to form faith, right, or to even live our faith. We don't come to church to, find God. We come to our places of worship to celebrate our faith and to celebrate our God. We come to our places of worship as a community of faith in order to share how we have seen God deliver us from the hardships that we have faced outside of the building, outside of the places of worship. So that we, like Isaiah, can say, on that day, the day we're all looking forward to, on that day this song will be sung in our places of worship. We have a strong God who sets up victory like walls and bulwarks. Open the gates, open the doors, so that the righteous people that keep faith may enter in. So as we might be tempted to trust the familiar or comfortable to keep us feeling safe, like simply being in our places of worship, I have a slew of questions, or at least a few of them to ask you. As you might be tempted to try and find security and comfort in simply being in familiar, comfortable spaces, instead of seeking to find comfort in building up and trusting God where you're at, how might God in this time of exile from our buildings, from your buildings, be calling you to look for God at work in your life right now, where you are, where you sit right now, which is outside of the building, right? How might God in this time of exile from our buildings be asking you to look for God at work in your life right now outside of the building? So how has God been building up your trust in God? How has God been building up your trust in God? Where have you experienced God delivering you in the past few months? delivering you from fear, delivering you from anxiety, delivering you from hunger, delivering you from losing your home, delivering you from loneliness, delivering you from hopelessness, delivering you from despair. I don't know. Where have you seen God? Where have you witnessed God delivering you in these past few months? Because, Lord, have mercy. God is a God of deliverance. God has had to have delivered you from something, or at least seen you through, if not from one state to another, at least has kept you safe as we've walked through this dark valley. Right? How has God done so? How has God inspired a renewed faith in you? A renewed trust in you as these moments of deliverance have occurred. So the last question was, how has God delivered? How has this helped your faith as you recall these things? And lastly, when we do re-enter our places of worship, and we will, how might you celebrate these victories, these deliverances of God, and these stories of faith, this increase in faith and trust that has happened because God has delivered you outside? How might you share these victories as we re-enter our spaces of worship? All right, lots of questions, but you can always go back and re-listen. But it's about trusting God and building up faith outside the building by thinking about how God has delivered you and how this has increased your faith, and then how you might share these stories of faith, especially, do it outside the church, please, because people need to hear those stories of faith right now, but also how might we celebrate them when we re-enter? All right, on to Philippians 2:25-30, which reads as follows. Still, I think it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother and co-worker and fellow soldier, your messenger and minister to my need. For he has been longing for all of you, and has been distressed because you heard that he was ill. He was indeed so ill that he nearly died. But God had mercy on him, and not only on him, but on me also, so that I would not have one sorrow after another. I am the more eager to send him, therefore, in order that you may rejoice at seeing him again, and that I may be less anxious. Welcome him, then, in the Lord with all joy, and honor such people, because he has come close to death for the work of Christ, risking his life to make up for those services that you could not give me. Here ends the reading. I don't have this in my notes, but I feel like if I just read this the second time, if you've heard this on this video the first time, distressed because you heard that I was ill, longing to see all of you, do these not sound like emotions we are feeling right now? I know for many people sometimes the Bible can feel like this foreign thing, but their stories are our stories. Their hardships are our hardships. And so their celebrations of when God has blessed them, delivered them, saved them, that's our God now too, living and active, not just an idea, but a person who is with us. Getting back to my notes, though, I wanted to keep my thoughts on these verses quite simple. Again, I just want to remind you we're reading a letter, an actual letter, which is considered sacred and holy because it's in our Bible. And so what that means is the actions described by the church, because these community of faithful, that's the church, in this letter, are then also sacred and holy. So it's a letter, which we call sacred. So the actions within the letter are also sacred. And so it's being called sacred and holy today then in this chunk of reading. It's pretty beautiful. Being eager to see people and rejoicing when we do. The eagerness you feel to be able to see people and celebrate their personhood, who they are in their lives, that you haven't been able to see in worship, over coffee, whatever. your grandchildren that you haven't been able to hold, whatever it might be. That eagerness, that longing is sacred and holy. Not that it should stay that way forever, but just know that when you feel that feeling and you think it's completely bad, it's not completely bad. That longing is good because it leads to the celebration and the joy when you finally do reconnect. So know that. I think that's a beautiful message today. So what does that mean for you? Well, it means this. Someone out there is longing to see you. That means you are holy and sacred to someone, right? And I'll speak for me, the pastor. Even if I haven't met you and you watch this video for the first time, right now, I would love to see you in person, to meet you, to know your name, to know your story, to give you a hug, to not have to wear a mask and stand 6 feet apart. I long to be able to be with you. That would bring my life joy. And because of that, know that that makes you holy and sacred. And that is awesome. Is that all that is to say that who you are, your presence is a gift. It's sacred and it's something to be longed for and to be celebrated. So I say, God bless you with the ability to be gift, your personhood. God bless you with the ability to be gift for someone today, as you are able to share your presence with them. And with that, I say again, peace be with you, and I will talk to you tomorrow.